Welcome to the Life Well Led podcast. Today I have on a guest. His name is Garrett Elconin. Garrett, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, Eric. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Man, I wanted to give a good intro for you, but I feel like you're the kind of person where you can give a better intro than I could give for you. So, what can you tell our audience about you?
Most certainly. Appreciate it. Currently, I'm a real estate developer and I build multifamily apartment buildings throughout the great state of Texas. And on the side, I'm building community. And the community is for high performing people. And we'll get into kind of more of the details on that a little bit later. But have also started a podcast to interview local entrepreneurs, creatives, and artists in the local DFW area.
Isn't that interesting? You build for a living, but you're also on the side wanting to build community. So it's not necessarily physical building, but it's communal building. So you said what? Where does your passion drive for that?
Well, they're related. And I would say that with the real estate game, real estate is all about where people live, work, and play. And so real estate follows the behavior of humans. And so when I was building apartment buildings, or when I still am, and I was presenting these business plans to investors and say, oh, we're building this incredible community. It's going to have a pool. It's going to have a rooftop. It's going to have a theater. It's going to have a game room, a lounge, all these great amenities. And I was super excited about it and know how much time and money and effort the full development team puts into these spaces. And then I lived in one of these buildings when I was my previous employer in Washington State. And guess what? No one used these amenities. And I was
Wow.
shocked and I could not believe it. There's 250 apartment units. That probably means 350, 400 people. And I didn't know my neighbors because people were just in and out of these apartment buildings. They weren't using the amenities. And so I just felt that there's something here that's missing. There's a gap. And so therefore, I'm trying to solve it.
I love the use of the word the gap because that's what I do in my own practice. But like you have this concern that there's nobody really showing up to use the amenities and that there's maybe even underlying it sounds like that there's not really community being built there. It's just people live and go to work and come back home. What and the aspiration then is to build the community. So trying to solve that gap is the challenge. In other words, am I on point there?
Completely. Yes. And I think a lot of people would like to know their neighbors, and it also is a benefit for owners as well. It's been proven out that if you have one friend or even multiple friends in an apartment building, you're more likely to renew your lease, which makes sense. And I think people are missing that community, and the spaces are incredible. So why not use them? Plus, I build them and pay for them, so I want people to use them and enjoy the spaces that we're in this amenity war in the development world.
Man, so you take two sides of that very seriously. You take your job, which is building the physical part of the community, but then you're also taking on the human side of it, the which I would call like the leadership approach to it is how do you build a community out of human beings that are complex and you don't necessarily have to have a degree in anything really because it's not that easy to solve. It's a leadership challenge. You can't, a marketing degree or a building degree or architect degree or anything of that nature is not necessarily going to solve the how do I get people to come together? And so that's the challenge.
Completely. And especially in this day and age, it seems that many people have come to the realization that social media is not social. It's not bringing us together. It's dividing us. It's bringing us further apart. It's making us more isolated and lonely. And so you have this purpose-built community right there. 350 people, 400 people in one building. Now, when you go to apartment buildings, there's usually multiple buildings. So
Right.
you have this ecosystem right here. And so it's my goal to figure out how to kind of leverage this current ecosystem of people. And I'm sure there's relatable traits there
Mm-hmm.
and figure out a way that we can, have more fun, honestly, together and communicate, meet other people and have interesting and fun, memorable experiences.
Yeah, it makes sense because even before COVID, we kind of saw that with the rise of social media, rise of technology, making it very difficult to actually have in-person relationships. Even with neighbors and houses, you see that very much so today. And I can attest to that as well as previous experience and current experience as well. The question is what drove you then? And this post-COVID, it's only gotten worse, right? But what drove you to really build the community aspect, not just in the buildings that you're building, but in where you work, live, and play in the Dallas area?
Frustration. frustration that
Okay.
nothing
Yeah.
existed, and I'm not someone to wait for others to create something. So it was up to me to create it. I see the problem. I believe I see a solution. I'm sure there's going to be some iteration in between to get to the final result, but
Right.
I'm confident that I'll be able to figure out that solution and build a community. And given my interpersonal relationships and just the ability to have fun and create memorable experiences for people, it was up to me to build it. If I want to see it, I might as well just build it myself.
And you're right. I think that there is something lacking in many cities, not just Dallas, but that the many cities lack this really great, high quality, conscious connection. And before we started filming, you really mentioned something about intentionality when it comes to connection. What do you think is what about intentionality is missing in the current networking groups, social clubs, etc. That you think the gap there is to be narrowed and ultimately bridged?
No, I love that you brought this up and what we were discussing about before, because it was great. And what I describe it is it's called open networking. So let's say you go to a certain event. Let's say it's for entrepreneurs. Well, you show up and there's kind of there's either a happy hour where you stand around and hope that someone will engage with you or you'll engage with them.
Right.
You'll have a 5 to 10 minute conversation, probably have a beer or cocktail in your hand, and then you'll talk about the weather and then what the person does and then maybe some sports. And then you'll exchange contact information and most likely not follow up or get one coffee and then potentially see them at the next event.
Right.
And so the value there just seemed mismatched. And also, you don't know who's showing up to these events. And so the quality of people isn't catered or it isn't really refined. Or there's another type of event where you'll have a speaker come, they'll present their life story and entrepreneurship. And then it's up to you, the audience member, to hopefully extract some tools, tips, or tactics from their experience to apply it to your life. But it's definitely not clear cut on what this person's strengths are or the problems that they solve or the obstacles or the tools that they've used that you can then see and apply to your own life. And then once again, you have your open networking of cocktail or drink before and after, and then hopefully exchange information and maybe meet up once or twice after that. But it just seemed that it was very transactional. The events weren't very special or catered or really facilitate a deeper connection amongst the attendees.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you have a challenge of not really a great value added proposition and it's too transactional. And the aspiration is to build something with a greater value add and have more intentionality to it. How close am I to what you're intended to say?
That's it, as well as to have a quality of attendees. So therefore, you're going to show up and meet other high quality people. Would be very important to gather the right people in the room.
Here's a curveball question, because normally I would ask, well, what is the solution to that? But it goes deeper than that. What makes progress hard getting to that solution, that aspiration that you're looking for?
I would say the status quo and not pushing the boundary. I think it's easy to have a happy hour. It's easy to have a speaker go up there and present and everyone shows up and just does the same thing. It's when you go to a conference. The conferences are all the same. You have a panel, you have salesmen who are sponsors, and it's just that's the way it is.
An exhibit hall, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't believe that life should be that's the way it is, because obviously every innovation has come from someone with a great idea challenging the status quo. And so that's where I believe that if you push the boundary, if you get people that trust in you and allow you to experiment, allow you to iterate, allow you to think differently, sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose, but as long as you keep trying and you're forthright with the audience and with your attendees, my belief is in the long term, you're going to create something different, memorable, and special that people are going to love, and people will never look back at these boring events that keep getting thrown.
I love that. Making a revolutionary idea of experimentation and being able to build from that, but the revolutionary idea that you can have a intentional meeting space with people and a community that you can reliably meet upon and have relationships with beyond just a transactional nature, and not just say, oh, this is the way we've always done it.
Exactly. And then to take it a step further, I mean, you also go to a concert or you go to an art event, and it's the same thing. If you show up with your little crowd and then you enjoy the event and then you leave with your little crowd, but how many times are you really interacting with that many other people? And it's not programmed into the event. You may be meeting some people here and there based upon your own proactive proactiveness, which some people are scared of and for fearful of
Fair.
interacting with other people there, which I don't quite understand, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like these events should be more intentional about fostering that connection, interaction, and engagement between the attendees. And that's where I feel is really lost and could be really improved upon.
Now the question then comes is, what do you think is, and you don't have to have the answer right away because this is something that will take some time, but what is your, maybe not ideal solution, but what is your vision for how to get that done?
My vision is to create what I'm calling an experience-based social club. And it's really just a community for high performers. And so it's people that are ambitious, people that want to live life to the fullest, really, like myself, aren't happy with the status quo and they want something better. And they're open, they're excited about it. They want to meet other people, they want to connect, they want to grow, and then they want to have fun. So whether it's a wine and chocolate pairing at an art gallery, which I hosted,
Nice.
whether it's kind of a personal growth workshop where it was very interactive and the speaker had three main topics, and then they allowed people in small breakout groups to discuss it and connect with one another on a deeper level, and then have these ideas to take home with them and to really implement in their life. So it's this combination of fun and interactive and social, as well as this engaging and insightful kind of growth exercise and workshops as well. That's what I'm working on right now and iterating upon.
So what can people do to learn more about what you're looking on, what you're working on, what you're looking for? Where would people start to look for you on that?
Appreciate that. Well, definitely follow me on Instagram at Garrett Elconin. Garrett, last name Elconin, Elconin. And then there you'll also see what I'm currently creating, which is Sapien Social, which is the name of the group.
Good.
And so I'll be posting events there and looking to kind of curate the audience and the events, because I do agree that it's important that the quality of the people there is high caliber, and therefore everyone is really providing value for the whole community.
Great. I want to give you one more time before we leave on that and make sure we circle back on it. But I just thought of this, right? The leadership challenge here is inspiring others to not only join the group, but build that community with you. Because you doing it by yourself, you're doing all the work. And that's not fair to you, number one, even though it's your vision. But number two, you can't do all the work yourself. So what is it that you think, in terms of what you've learned so far in building Sapien Social, that you've learned about leadership, and what can that be applied to for those that may have similar aspirations as far as building a community, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a for-profit, whether it's building a faith community from scratch? What would you say that lesson would be to somebody who's listening to this?
If you want to build it properly, building community takes time and it takes a lot of trust. And it's critical for you to develop one-on-one relationships with those people early on so that you can really solicit critical feedback, which people have a very hard time telling you unless you really ask for it and beg for it and really invite it personally. No, after event surveys. I mean, you could do that, but I feel the best way is really personal. Get food, get coffee, get a drink, call them. And really that's how you iterate and really allowing them to be a part of the journey. Because as you said, I have my own thesis and ideas of what I want to build, but this isn't just for me, it's for everyone. Right. And so I need to know what other people would like and what my blind spots are. And then together we can build this community and create a group and community that they'll find value in. That's the key is value in having fun, in growing, in learning, and really enjoying this beautiful planet we call Earth and this beautiful life that we're living in.
Man, so that's perfect. I love your energy on that, being able to really be present in the moment, enjoy what we have, and be able to see a vision where people can have that same kind of experience and not just be, as we talked previously before recording, just being passive, just being, what was the word that you had used?
Lack of intentionality, not being curious. And really, I believe that humans are
distracted too and being hacked. You had said that it's just technology has hacked their ability to really be present and enjoy the moment.
Yeah, there's all these distractions, such as video games, such as porn, such as alcohol, such as social media and Netflix. And all of this is just distracting us from really having fun and finding joy, in my opinion. And those things are short-term, in my belief, and they can really be short-term happiness. But I believe that relationships, really getting out there and having memorable experiences, traveling, meeting people,
Hmm.
and having these insightful conversations with other people is really what life is all about.
I'm more intentional about that than I've ever been. And thank you for bringing that up because I feel like I've been doing that for the last 6 months, and I don't think I've enjoyed life more than what I'm doing currently just by meeting people. And we haven't known each other for very long, but there's really good conversation that's come out of it, good relationship building from it. And, I don't think either of us expect anything in return other than to just enjoy the moment for what we're coming up with and see what the future holds. So I really appreciate you coming on today. There's one last question I want to leave with the audience, and that is to you, what does a life well led mean for you?
That's a great question. I think it's a very important question. And I've always thought about my life in reverse, actually.
Okay.
And so I think it's important to kind of start with the end in mind and how you're going to architect and design your life. So, therefore, your job, your relationships, your friendships, your activities, all of that interweaves into actually the outcome you want. Because otherwise, you can kind of start at the beginning and then you build this life that you end up don't really enjoying. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong is they don't look who's in the corner office and see that person and say, wow, that's a person that I definitely don't want to be, yet they continue to stay in that seat and work towards that position as if they want that life. But really, once they get there, they realize they've climbed the first mountain and they're really not happy. And so I know that's a little intro there, but for me, what's important is giving back and making an impact,
Hmm.
and along the way, growing in that journey. And I believe that, entrepreneurship or creating something yourself or with other people that you have a passion for not only gets you to the outcome, but who you become in the process. And the attributes, the characteristics, the mentality, the resilience that's needed is super critical. So I would say first it's, making an impact. Second, it's growing into the best version that I can be. And then third would be relationships, both with friends and family, and making sure that I raise a great family and honorable children that have attributes that I would admire and really want them to continue on in this world, impacting other people.
Great answer. Absolutely great answer. It's so intentional. It's so present in the moment again, and also just being able to give back and make an impact. I think to your point, even previous to that, which was, being intentional about your life as far as where you want to go. It's not necessarily right, maybe a job title, which is what we all have learned to chase implicitly or explicitly. But what kind of life, what quality of life do you want to have? Like, what does your day look like from start to finish? What does your family look like? What is your, nature of what you do? What does your connection with people look like? I think the more we realize that what we've been sold as the bag of goods is not what we want, the more we can plan our lives around what we actually want and try to build it that way rather than say, I'm going to climb the ladder and see what the mountaintop looks like.
Exactly. Learn from other people that have climbed before you and just hear from them.
Hmm. Absolutely. One more time, if you want to, please plug your Sapien Social and how they can get connected with you.
Yes. So first, I have a podcast called The Pod with Garrett Elconin, where I interview, local entrepreneurs and creatives, because that's kind of the realm of the social club is a good component of those types of individuals, as well as high performers in the corporate world that are ambitious and want to make a change there. And so then you have Sapien Social, which is the community. You can find it on Instagram. And then myself, Garrett Elconin, on Instagram and TikTok, where you'll find kind of the shorts for the podcast. And therefore, it's these, anecdotes that help inspire you, give you tools, tactics, and takeaways to help you elevate your life.
Very good. Garrett Elconin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. You have a good rest of your day, and folks, we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Eric. It was a pleasure.